Griffin Tucker is with me. Griffin, man, it is so nice to finally do this, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I am good. Now, I'm going to start off being straight up honest here about a couple of things. Um, you, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know for a fact, because this I did check. In 2018, you sent me a message on Twitter and you said, hey, man, check out my new video. Um, and I checked it out. And then I think you sent me another tweet. Now, this is the part I'm not sure about, so correct me if I'm wrong. You sent me something else that I listened to, and I said to you, I think it's great. I said, but it's not hard enough for my show. And you said to me, then wait till you hear what I'm coming out with next year. Is that correct? Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was looking for that message and I couldn't find it. And so, I checked you out and that kind of thing. And true to your word, it came out. And I said, he's not kidding. This is right up my alley. So I wanted to be fully transparent about that because, a lot of times I get messages on social media all the time. And a lot of times I just don't have a chance to listen to them. And I bitch at bands a lot about this, is I'll say, especially on Instagram, I'll go, did you not read the bio? Because the bio clearly says send band submissions to, okay? But I admire your persistence. And that being said, here we are in 2021. You have a publicist. And, even if you didn't, I'm sure I would have heard from you and said, hey, man, you said, I told you my stuff is going to be hard and it's going to fit the show. So you started playing at what? 5 years old, 8 years old? 8 years old, you were playing professionally. Is that correct?
Yes, I played my first shows when I was 8.
Amazing. And it was some kind of Disney tie-in?
No, when I was 8, I originally started in the Beatles tribute band, but once I got done with that, then I auditioned to be a part of Zendaya's backing band. And at the time, she was with Disney. So that was a little later on, but it was around that time.
Okay. And you play, I know on the video you had sent me in 2018, you play every instrument on that song.
Yes, I do.
You're a multi-talented instrumentalist. And again, this is why I'm like, oh, I so want to talk to him. You play, run down the list of instruments. I know you play drums, you play guitar, what else?
I started on drums when I was 5, and then I moved to piano and then guitar and bass, ukulele, mandolin, harmonica. I sing, of course, and then there's a bunch of like miscellaneous percussion instruments and all that type of stuff, but it's a lot. Yeah.
Did you take lessons? Were you self-taught?
I took about, actually it was there were very few lessons. I took about 6 months of piano when I was first starting out, but besides that, it's pretty much just been, just within myself to teach myself.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I read somewhere in one of your press releases that how old were you when you won a Dallas guitar contest? Tell me about that.
I was.
How old are you now? Let me ask you that.
I'm 19 now. I do know that. I think it was 14 or 15 when I won the Texas Top 10.
Amazing.
And that was really just crazy because I was competing. I didn't know I was competing at first. My mom was actually like sending videos of me playing different songs and playing guitar and singing and all that type of stuff. And I just kept going through until eventually I actually had to go to the Dallas Guitar Show to go compete. And my mom was like, hey, you're a top 10 finalist in this competition. I'm like, what competition? She's like, well, it's the Texas Top 10. And so I of course I went down there and all the 10 people played. And I was so intimidated. There were these shredders, there were these blues players and all these different styles, like finger style, like acoustic type of stuff. It was really just intimidating just to be able to be beside them. And I'm just like up there singing like a Queen song. But of course they called my name and I was so just honored and humbled. And it was really amazing just to be able to be a part of that.
Now, you have, besides the videos we've talked about, you have a lot of cover videos on your YouTube channel with tens and tens of thousands of hits. I didn't add them all up, but reviews, I should say. A lot of people know who you are. You were on American Idol. Now, I'm going to be honest. I love Aerosmith. I didn't watch American Idol when Steven Tyler was on it. Okay. I would watch the highlights. All right. But tell me about what you did on American Idol. I saw a little clip of you and Katy Perry. So how old were you when you got on American Idol? How far did you get on American Idol? I know you got pretty far.
I did American Idol in 2017 or 18, so I'd have been like 16, 17, that area. And I did that show. It was really, I mean, both with The Voice of American Idol, it was just surreal. It was like jumping through your TV screen, just kind of like being on that set.
Which one came first? I knew The Voice and I forgot about that. So which were you on first, The Voice or American Idol?
The Voice was first when I was 14.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And how far did you get on The Voice?
On The Voice, I got to blinds, but I didn't get a chair.
Okay.
But it was really, I mean, when they all turned around after the song, they were all like, "Wait, you sound like you're 23. You're 14. What?" And so they turned around and they thought I was just like some guy who didn't know how to relate to Heartbreak Hotel. And at 14, I didn't know how to relate to Heartbreak Hotel. Yeah, it was, I mean, it's just really cool just to be a part of those competitions and meet the judges and get to just perform in front of them, get feedback on what I could do better, but also get to meet the different contestants because we all share the same vision and the same drive and the same goal and the same dream. And it's really cool just to get to hang around those people. And on The Voice, I hung around them for a month. So it was really cool just to get to experience all that.
See, this is what I love about you. You're so humble because you're not bringing up the fact that that show has millions of people watching. So, okay, so now let's get to American Idol. When was American Idol?
American Idol was 2 years later. I did The Voice in 2015. I would have done American Idol in 2017. So it would have been 16 probably.
And how far did you get there?
On American Idol, I got to Hollywood Week. I got to the first round.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you play on there? What song?
On American Idol, I actually played. They cut it down for time, for TV. Sure. But I played 3 songs. I played Lady Madonna by the Beatles. I played Crazy Little Thing Called Love by Queen and Sarah by Fleetwood Mac. In that order, I played Lady Madonna. They were like, okay, he's a good piano player. It's not really a vocally demanding song, so they didn't really have much of a gauge as far as like what kind of a singer I am. And so they were kind of hesitant, and they were like, "Do you have another song?" And I said yes. So of course I got off the piano and then I got my guitar, played Crazy Little Thing Called Love. It's also not a very demanding song, but it's a different, different band, different style. And they were really kind of like scratching their heads and being like, well, is he good enough to go through? He's a really good musician. It's just we're kind of looking for more of a singer. And then they asked me to do a third song, which was Sarah. And Sarah is one of the hardest songs that I usually sing, just because it takes a lot of emotion. It takes a lot to just deliver it, and then also it gets up there because it's Stevie, and of course she's just a wonderful singer.
Yeah.
But I did that song, and they were like, okay, I get it. And Katie, once I did Lady Madonna, she compared me to a young Paul McCartney. Which pretty much all I could ask for.
Yeah.
And Lionel Richie, which made the TV, he said, if this is what you can do at 15 or 16, if this is what you can do at this age, I'm afraid of you. And I was just like, okay, Lionel. But it was really cool just to be in front of him, and of course it was very nerve-wracking. just to kind of be in that position of just like,
Yeah, I can
oh my
only
gosh,
imagine.
I really have to prove myself with 3 songs, not just one. So
So were you,
it
I mean, you've
was,
been performing all these years, but you know, obviously that's big time stuff. So were you like a bundle of nerves, like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Can I do this? I'm going out in front of all these people. And you keep omitting the fact that there's millions of people watching this at home on television. Those are like the biggest shows on TV.
yeah, I mean, well, I think the biggest takeaway for me and the biggest thing about being on the shows is that I got to meet a whole different group of people that watch those shows that I wouldn't have ever been able to meet otherwise, or to get to share my gift with. And it's really that was really the main reason why I wanted to do those shows, is just to be able to reach a new audience and to reach new people. Um, but as far as doing those shows, it was really, I mean, it was crazy just to be in front of them. And of course, I had been performing for years, and I always have nerves before I perform.
Hmm.
But once I get up there, and once I get in that zone, I start the first, few seconds of the first song, I'm there.
Yeah, it goes away.
I'm at
Yeah.
peace. It's what I've
Hmm.
always been meant to do. And I just kind of have this sense of peace with that. So the nerves just kind of float away.
So how did you get into rock and roll?
Well, when I first got into music, I was less than a year old. I was about 6 months old. I had this terrible condition. It's called RSV. It's a respiratory
Mm.
disease.
Hmm.
And I was 6 months old, and when if you get it when you're older, you're able to like cough that stuff out. But being 6 months old, I didn't know how to cough it out, so they would have to, like put tubes in my throat just to like drain it all out. It's just really just gross stuff. But the only thing that would ever calm me down was listening to Baby Einstein and watching that, and just I was just kind of like mesmerized by these sounds and this all, of course, like all the toys on the screen. But also just listening to the different sounds, and like listening to Bach and Beethoven and Mozart. It really kind of gave me an appreciation for an arrangement, because
Right.
classical music, it didn't always have lyrics, so all you really heard was the melodies and the counterpoints, and what filled up the lows, what was floating on top. And really kind of, it was a really cool way to kind of get introduced into music. um but beyond listening to that, when I started going to school, and my mom would be driving me everywhere, she would put on the Beatles radio. And the first song I really remember being like, whoa, this is a new sound. It's not strings and like brass and all that type of stuff. Was Obla Di Obla Da. And it was a piano, it was guitar, it was vocals for the first time, So, and of course drums. I mean, it was really just, epiphanous, is that a word? Just to get
It
to
is now.
hear the yes, hear these new sounds. And of course, the Beatles are still my number one, and I've always just loved that music, and it's just drawn me to rock and roll, and that's led me to AC/DC and Kiss and Led Zeppelin and Queen and Aerosmith and all these different bands and all these classic rock bands, just making organic, real sounds that I really just have an appreciation for.
It is amazing because it like you say, it is a gift that you can play so many things, you can sing, you can do it all. Now let me ask you about, because I saw somewhere in an interview that you did that you write songs with your mom.
Yes, I do.
Tell me about that.
I mean, when I first started being a solo artist, or wanting to be a solo artist, when I was 11. Um, and my
I love
first
that.
step.
I love how nonchalant you are
Well,
about this. I wanted to
I
be
mean,
a
I'm
solo
19
artist
now, so it's kind
at
of like,
11. It's like Mick Jagger going, I wanted to do a solo album. The show, my show it's sponsored by Coke Zero, so I have to drink Coke Zero during the show.
nice.
No,
But
it's really not, but I'm just working on that. So okay, so you wanted to go solo. And
solo. I had done, the Beatles tribute band. I had toured with Zendaya, but I wanted to make a name for myself, and I couldn't do that being, somebody else's, musician, or being a drummer. I
sure.
kind of had to be my own guitarist and a vocalist. And my first step into doing that was getting a deal with this guy named Patrice Wilson. And if you don't know, Patrice Wilson produced the infamous Friday by Rebecca Black. So he certainly had a name. Of course, maybe not for the best reason, but it was a first step. And he basically made a deal where it was, you use one of my beats, and I'll like promote this song, and you can do whatever you want with the lyrics and the melody. Okay, so I took that, and I didn't use like just like the beat like as it was. I had to like chop it up and be like, well, this is a good verse, this is a good chorus, kind of like chop it up in like my garage band. I still love garage band. I still make my demos on garage band on my little iPad I'm talking to right now.
Yeah, I use it
But
too.
yeah. But I needed to write lyrics, and I still don't really have a natural drive to write lyrics. But especially at the time, I was just like, well, I need some lyrics for this, and I wasn't gonna let Patrice Wilson write another Friday for me.
Right.
And my mom and my dad stepped up to the plate, and they're like, well, we'll try it out. We'll give it a shot. And so they wrote Girlfriend, and that was my first song, and that was really the first kind of step. So I mean, my mom writing my lyrics has really just been pretty much like out of necessity, because I've really just never fully developed like a really good taste for good lyrics, and a really good drive to kind of make lyrics like I have for music. Like music just kind of comes out, it flows out, and it's just like being a creative, I kind of have to do it. It's not like a purposeful, oh, I'm gonna like try to make a song today. It's like, oh, I hear something in my head and I have to put it down. And I just really don't have that with lyrics. But my mom's a lawyer, and that's her day job. But of course, she's really good with words, and it
Being a
was,
lawyer, sure.
yes, being a lawyer. But yeah, and of course she's always made wonderful lyrics for these songs, and I couldn't be more grateful. She's the best.
Well, and what you're saying makes perfect sense, because again, you are gifted. This music obviously just is in you and comes out of you. And a lot of times when I'm interviewing people, I always ask them, well, what was the inspiration for this song or that song? And you're pretty young to have, it's always life experience. They always say, write what you know about. And you're pretty young to have like, crazy life experience and to come out with it. So I think that's wonderful. But I had heard that in one of your interviews, and I said, this is great that he does this. Now, you said your mom and your dad were they involved in Gypsy Woman and Get Away?
My mom co-wrote the lyrics Gypsy Woman with this guy named Garrett Ragsdale. He's one of my friends. But Getaway is all my mom. Yeah, she was definitely involved.
Nice. That is so freaking cool, man.
Yes,
That is so cool.
awesome.
So your parents obviously rock parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I love, because that's where this new generation is coming from. And another thing I'm going to be fully transparent and blatantly honest about is I saw somewhere, I don't know where, what are they calling this? The new wave of classic rock?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not calling it that. To me, it's rock and roll. And I'm going to tell you why. I never liked the term classic rock. To me, it meant old. Okay. So me being a child of the 70s and really coming of age in the mid 70s, okay, and going to my, first concert at Madison Square Garden, which was Alice Cooper, and seeing Aerosmith a year later, and then I was off and running. To me, classic rock was stuff from the 60s, or not just stuff from the 60s, but songs that were tried and true, that you heard over and over and over again. And then when the 80s hit, the 70s became classic rock. And when the 90s hit, the 80s became classic rock. And now it's like, well, what is classic rock? As soon as you're 10 years old, you become classic rock. And that's maybe just my mentality on the whole thing, because, to me, it should be a set genre like the 50s were, like doo-wop was, or like big band was. And maybe it's a denial thing, because I want to see things moving forward, But if people are going to put a title on it, that's fine. You're just not going to hear me say that, because I would never even say classic rock. You know, I was like, oh, I don't like the word classic rock. Now we'll use it in certain descriptions because it is, you know, it's a popular genre. Let's put it that way. You know, I prefer to say new rock, that kind of thing. But there is this whole new crop of you, because, you know, when I first started my radio show, somebody had said to me, listen, you know, what you might want to, they're like, this is never going to work, you know, what you're doing. And they go, you know what you should try? You should try to find new bands. And it took me a couple of years before that really sank in. And I realized that this woman was right. And that's what I set my sights on, because I said, look, let's be honest in the most sincere way. Okay. A lot of the 60s and 70s rock. I mean, Bob Dylan turned 80 years old. Okay. Probably one of the oldest out there. The rest of these guys are in their 70s. Okay. In 10 years, they're not going to be around, at least probably on a stage. Even the 80s rockers, okay, they're not going to be around. It's just the circle of life, you know, it's just the way it is. And I'm not happy about it. Believe me, there's some people I know, and God forbid they die, I'm not going to take it well. So, you know, that being said, I was like, yeah, really, we need to focus on what's coming up. And it seems that so many of you young people that I talk to, you know, you got it from your parents. You know, your parents were the ones. I mean, I know I did that with my kids, playing them rock and roll. They grew up on rock and roll. It doesn't mean that they're all rockers, but they know it well. So, yeah, who actually coined that phrase? Do you know? New wave of classic rock.
The new wave of classic rock, it was pretty much a collaboration, just like, you know, just making like the bio, like what people read from the start. It was pretty much a collaboration between me and my mom.
Okay.
But to me, I mean, classic rock doesn't have to mean old. Like, it doesn't have to mean 60s or 70s or 80s. Classic to me, like when I listen to a classic rock station, you hear the songs that everybody loves, songs that have stood the test of time.
Right.
They're classics. And I'm trying to use that type of songwriting, using those elements from different bands and not just one, just kind of making a mix so that it all just kind of becomes one, it becomes my own, but it has the classic hints so that it could possibly, you know, live on, you know, beyond whatever immediate hype, I guess.
Right. Which is great, because that's where it's all birthed from in the beginning.
Yes.
One of the radio stations that I'm on, were like kind of the only rock show. And they had said to me via email, they said, we like your old school style. And I'm thinking, what do you mean old school? I play all these new bands. And then I thought about it and I went, I see what they're saying, because I do go for blues based boogie hard rock and roll. That's where it's at for me. Okay. I'm not very heavy metal. I'm not like 80s or whatever. It's just, you know, so I understood what they were saying, because I'm like, well, I love people like what Griffin's doing, or JT is doing, or what Red Voodoo is doing, and so many other of these bands. I'm like, I really love this kind of stuff. So then I understood what they meant. So it may seem like I'm disagreeing with you, but I'm really agreeing with you, you know?
Yeah.
So what else, man? What's next?
What's next? Well, I'm hoping.
Is there an album in the works for this? Is it just you know, you recording more songs? What's going on with that?
I'm constantly writing songs. I'm constantly just throwing ideas around, and kind of it's always just a mixed bag as far as how songs get made. Sometimes you sit down and it's right there, it's right then. You just make the song in that day and that's it. That's how Heartful of Love was. But for a song like Gypsy Woman, I made that idea, I think over 2 years ago at this point. I made that riff, I put it in my voice memos, and I just sat there. until one day I was just shuffling through, looking at my voice memos. That came up, and I was like, okay, I'll write a song to this today. And so I just, it just grew: bass, drums, choruses, bridges, solos, all that type of stuff. So it's always a different process for each song. So I'm constantly throwing ideas around, I'm constantly trying to, see what I can do differently. And, I'm always trying to do something different with my songs and not always trying to repeat myself.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, an album would be ideal. I mean, that's always been the goal. I did have that my first EP, but a full length album,
I
of
saw
course.
that and listened to it. Yeah,
Thank you.
it's good.
But financing an album is a lot, and
Yeah.
pre-production, post-production, all that type of stuff. So there's definitely going to be new songs in the future. There's nothing set in stone yet, but there's definitely going to be songs in the future.
Well, and a lot of bands are doing what you're doing, whether it be singles or an EP. And I think it's a good idea because I am constantly preaching this. An album, an LP, and your parents can tell you this, there was only enough room for 44 minutes of music. That was it. Physically, that's all you could put on there. Then the CD comes out, you could physically put 70 minutes of music, and every band felt like they had to fill 70 minutes. Now that's basically double the music. In the 70s, if you came out with a double album, you had a lot of really good material. Okay. Not a lot of major bands came out with a double album. Now, I don't care who the band was when the CD came out, didn't matter how big the band was, 14, 16 songs, there was filler because everybody was like, well, we need to fill this. Because you always have leftover tracks, okay, that you don't put on an album. And now I think it's kind of come back to the other way where because I look at all these things and these albums that I see that are coming out now, they're clocking in at 30, 40 minutes. And I'm like, smart idea. That's all it needs to be. And way before you were born, with no internet, people's attention span is like that. So they're not going to sit down and your parents can probably tell you this when you went out, even though I'm sure they're much younger than I am, but still, when you bought an album, man, back in the day, you were invested. Okay. You bought that. If you were lucky, you had enough money to get 2 albums. Okay. So you would get that album, you'd put on the turntable, you would sit there, you'd look at the cover work, you would read all the liner notes, you turn it over, you'd listen to every song.
I have my vinyl collection like right over there. It's a much more purposeful listen than just hitting shuffle on your computer or popping a CD in.
Yeah. And the world we live in today, it's not just kids, it's everybody. Everybody's on their phone. It's bam, 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 bam. Things are moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So, I think singles are not a bad idea at all. I think it's a great idea. Now, here's what I want to ask you. On your social media, on Instagram, you have 16,000 followers. On Twitter, you have 20,000 followers. Now, I know a lot of this, again, millions of people know who you are because of The Voice, American Idol. A lot of those followers, they come from that. Now, unlike a pop act, how do you now say, okay, I got a lot of followers, but how do you get them to follow into the rock audience? It's like, yeah, we love this guy on American Idol, or we love this guy on The Voice, but they may not necessarily be a rock audience. They may be more of a pop audience. So have you given that thought? Do you understand where I'm coming from with that? And what do you do with that? Like, how do you now, because now you're looking for a new audience now as well. Okay. Because the American Idol audience, it combines so many different people of so many different genres that are basically watching TV and be like, oh yeah, I've heard that Queen song that he did before. That's a good tune. All right. But now you're a rock and roller. And what do you do?
Well, I started off pop because, of course, I was 11. I didn't really have voice I do now. so I started off doing pop until I released my first EP. My EP was really just my statement as far as like, this is the direction now. This is what it's always meant to be, and this is what it's going to be. And I released that EP, I think shortly after, or I think I started making the EP shortly after I got off The Voice. Really because I knew I was starting to reach new people. I was starting to really become what I've always wanted to be, and I wanted to be more authentic to what I am, what I listen to,
Mm-hmm.
and what I want to give to other people, what I want to change the world with. Um, and so once ever since Believe It, I've always tried to stay authentic to myself and not just try to just like, you know, just make another, product, or just make something that's just like, okay, I think some people will like this, but it's not really my thing. I really just want to make something that I'm really proud of, in hopes that the people who will really get me, and the people who might, follow me after being on The Voice and American Idol, and who are really interested in Griffin Tucker, the person, the artist, the musician, in hopes that they will also, appreciate that and identify with that authenticity as I create my, music that really represents me.
Right. Okay, good. So many people are on the Rock is Dead bandwagon. Another thing I've been in denial over, and because I just never thought I would see the day where, I don't think it's dead, but it's not to where, I mean, look, in the 70s, you had Aerosmith, Kiss, Queen play there twice a year in Madison Square Garden. I mean, it was crazy. And again, like I was saying earlier, those bands now have moved on or are going to move on. It's not the bands I'm worried about, because there is so much young rock and roll talent out there, because I look for it and I listen for it, and it is there, and it is there all over the world. I mean, there's a band in Brazil that I've recently come on to. There's a band in Greece, just to name a couple. I'm more concerned is, where's the audience going to be? Because look, quite honestly, you go to a concert now and everybody's like 60, people are, they're older, unless it's, like a younger band. I mean, I've seen Dirty Honey live. I love Dirty Honey. And they bring in young people. So I'm like, okay, this is a good sign. So, that's where my concern is. I'm not concerned about the bands being there. I'm concerned about the fans being there.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I've been really, really fortunate, fortunate in a way, or, fortunate in general, just to be able to reach a very wide audience with social media, because I've been constantly just putting myself out there and constantly communicating with, talking to my fans through social media, and they tell their friends and they tell their friends, and it's so widespread. But I've really just been fortunate enough to reach so many different demographics, just, young people, old people, guys, girls, just everybody. And it's really it's just good music that brings all those people together. And I think with bringing people to shows, I know that it's very much, rap is very much in right now, pop is very much, has always been in.
Yeah.
But it's all about, I guess it's just about making people move, and having, making people, or giving something that people can identify with. And if they identify with rock, then they identify with rock. But I mean, and there's always got to be new sounds. I've seen that throughout the years of music history. It's always been that the newest sounds and the best new sounds were always going to be ruling the era, and just kind of like defining that era, especially like once the 80s came. It was like this gated reverb, and like, making everything like half sharp and kind of like slowing it down so it gives it that 80s sound. So it's really just, it's really just making something that people can identify with, and if young people can identify with it, then that's really awesome. But I mean, if anyone identifies with it, that's a win in my book, you know.
I couldn't agree more. Listen, you have already won, in the sense that you are I find you to be truly a remarkable person with
Thank you.
you're very welcome, with a beautiful soul, a great personality. You are one of these people that were born to do what you're doing. There's people in life that it's like he was born to do that, you know. You're one of those people. um you, your humbleness blows me away, that you have no, you're not cocky, you're just like the nicest guy. Again, this is why it's like, oh no, I want to video interview this guy, man. I love this guy. He's phenomenal. So it's a great pleasure. It really is. And I admire your persistence. And I hope you didn't get pissed at me when I wasn't blowing you off. I certainly knew you weren't paid attention. And I'll tell you something else. I was looking, when the new year came around, and before you even had a publicist, I already had the tune. I already bought it. Like, I bought it as soon as it came out. I'm like, oh, okay. He said this year, let's take a listen. I took a listen. I said, he wasn't kidding, man. Like, this is kicking ass. So, I do hope that I didn't piss you off.
Oh my gosh. No, I mean, I really appreciate the depth of your questions. It was really cool to get to just answer these questions and just kind of explore different things that I haven't, explored before. So thank you.
You are very welcome. And again, we've been on Gypsy Woman since it came out, playing it on the show. And I know our schedules have been conflicting, and your publicist said, well, he wants to put it off a little more because he's got another song out. I'm so glad that you did, because as if I didn't love Gypsy Woman, Get Away, I'm like, see, even better, So that's actually on my show. Let's see here. Hang on.
I can't lose you now.
Oh, dude, okay. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. So my fourth song every show is a brand new song. And this week, I don't know if you can see this. If you go my show always starts with Aerosmith. So it's Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Bourbon House, Griffin Tucker.
Hey, thank you so much.
So there you are.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's the show. Our first airing of that was today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So yeah, that's like a spot on our show where it's like, okay, when somebody comes out with something, I can't take credit for the song,
I think I'm losing you. It's like coming in and then coming out. It's strange.
Right,
I think we're good.
Good. Okay. Yeah, knock those headphones off.
Okay.
Yeah, you're got so excited. So yeah, that was actually my producer's idea, that the fourth song should always be a brand new release, and this week you're it, and you've been on anyway. So again, and you know what? Hats off, kudos to your parents, because they have raised a very fine young man.
Absolutely. I couldn't be more grateful, and they're so supportive, and don't know where I'd be without them.
Do you have siblings? Are you only a child?
Yes, I do. I have an older brother. Yeah, and he's very supportive as well.
Good for you. Well, listen, anytime, publicist, no publicist, you want to do the show, absolutely. It was.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. I love you, man. I just love how cool. It's your humble. I can't even find the words. I'm like, this guy acts like, like yeah, thanks. It's like,
yeah,
And it's like,
it's rock and roll.
yeah. So I love that, man. You're a very great person, and I will continue to play you and follow you. And you know, I want to say thank you even before you got to where you got to for hounding me, because that says a
Yeah,
lot about me. I'm like, well, that's cool that this guy's hounding me, you know. So yeah, thank you for that, man.
absolutely.
All right, Griffin Tucker, thank you so much, and we will be talking to you soon.
Thank you so much, Jay.
Okay, before you go, can you do a promo for me? Just, hey, this is, and by the way, you even have the perfect name, Griffin Tucker. It sounds like a rock name, a musician name, Griffin Tucker.
That's sweet.
It just, like, you don't forget it. You know what I mean? It's not, it's
Yeah,
like Griffin Tucker, you know.
it rolls off.
You could, exactly. If you could do, hey, this is Griffin Tucker. You're listening to Rock Hard with Jay Conroy. Anytime
right.
you're ready.
Hey, this is Griffin Tucker, and you're listening to Rock Hard with Jay Conroy.
Great. Thanks so much, man. It seriously was a pleasure. And you know, everything I said in the interview, and this part's all off the record, but everything I said in the interview, you know, totally true, you know. And
Thank
I
you.
didn't want to get on and just you know, even the bad shit where I was like, you know, okay, he wants me to play his song. It's like, yeah, and the fact that I even answered you knew that you had something, because I mean, I can't actually answer all the stuff I get.
Of
I get
course.
that. It's like I'm running this big production company, you know.
Right.
So you know, the fact that you caught my ear, you know, said a lot about you, and you know, your persistence, definitely a lot. And it's a beautiful thing, man. So
Thank you. Thank you.
all right, man. I will let you go.
All
And
right.
I'll talk to you next time, Griffin.
All righty. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thank you.